Right friends, welcome back to third capsule. This is on financial stability report. Two things I would like to tell you. This financial stability report on the state of economy as well as how the developments across the world affect our country and what is the present status of a banking system in particular. These things are all looked after by Reserve Bank of India in Financial Stability Report, and RBI releases twice in a year. This is very important. And another important aspect is Global Financial Stability Report is released by International Monetary Fund. So these two things please don't forget. And in this I have taken certain points to explain you various aspects pertaining to economy. First one is macro financial risks in the world. What at present various risks across the world. The first one, which is evident from the report, is negative feedback from productivity. Productivity is not increasing. Productivity means output per unit of input. Output should be more, input should be less. That is improvement in productivity. So here negative feedback from productivity. Then second important point across the world is global trade slowdown. Global trade. We are talking about exports and imports. Global trade means exports and imports, and global trade has slowed down. And the pertinent point here is, if you look at GDP as a whole across the world, GDP as a whole across the world is expected to be around 3%, maybe between 2.5 to 3%, but the global trade growth is expected to be between 1.5 to 2%. Normally, global trade is 1.5 times global GDP. But what happened during the recent past is global trade is trailing the global GDP. This is one important factor in recent times. The next one is raising protectionist tendencies. Various countries are resorting to protectionist tendencies. Just one example is Donald Trump, make America great again. And I am not going in detail because we had around 2-3 capsules in recent times on protectionism, and the latest one is protectionism and emerging market economies, which we discussed during 50th week. Please view those capsules. Around 3-4 capsules are there after the victory of Donald Trump on protectionism. And view all those capsules because protectionism is the buzzword in recent times. You can expect protectionism as a topic for group discussion or essay or as a question, and this assumed a lot of significance in recent times, especially during 2016. One is protectionism, the other one is a post-truth, right? And the next point as mentioned in the report is uptick in the interest rates in USA. USA recently started increasing their interest rates. When advanced economies increase their interest rates, then what will happen? Emerging markets will be affected because capital outflows will be there. And the above reasons may pose significant risk to emerging market economies. And here I would like to tell you few points about emerging market economies as well as developed economies. What exactly is the meaning of emerging market economy? Emerging market economy means the countries which started reforms both internally, external sector, the countries which started reforms, the countries which liberalized trade as well as investments, the countries which are attracting sufficient foreign direct investment, and at the same time the countries where overall transformation is intended from closed economy to market economy. That is the real meaning of emerging market economy. And advanced economies I have listed here, emerging market economies I have listed here, please go through it. So, these are the global macroeconomic risks. And if you look at what about India, we discussed about global macroeconomic risks, and what about India? The first one is positives I have given, negatives I have given. This is what is written in Financial Stability Report. And to understand these things is very, very important, because you may be required to answer any question if you understand economic concepts. And normally these issues are discussed in detail in economic survey. Economic survey is presented one day before budget, and this financial stability report is also equally important, but you need not go through the entire report, but important aspects which are flagged in the report are important. Reduced policy uncertainties, what is the meaning of it? Nowadays, after the present government came to power, the policy uncertainties are reduced. There is a clear-cut policy guidelines. That is one important aspect. Previously, there was a lot of uproar about, in previous days, there was a lot of uproar about retrospective taxation and inconsistent tax laws. These were discussed previously, and now after the advent of the present government, there is one policy direction is there. That is the meaning of this. Then more legislative reforms. More legislative reforms are being brought nowadays, several laws are modified, and at the same time bankruptcy code was brought. Bankruptcy code was brought, at the same time SARFAESI Act was modified. Like that, several other laws were modified, basically to give more thrust to ease of doing business, and this is one positive sign in our country. And a switch over to GST. Switch over to GST is one landmark reform. And the next point which was flagged in the report is withdrawal of legal tender status of rupees 500 and rupees 1000 notes. The report stated, though in the short term it may cause difficulty, but if you look at in the long run, it will be beneficial to the country. But what are the negatives as flagged in the report? Spillovers from global events. Global events may have spillover effects on the emerging market economies. If some advanced country increases interest rates, then capital flight may take place. And if some countries follows protectionist policies, then FDI flows may be reduced. So these are all spillovers from global events. Second one is risk of a lower turnover by corporate sector. Corporate sector is not doing well. Our GDP growth is primarily due to two factors. One important factor is basically consumption. More consumption, because of the reason we have around 128 crore population. And second one is increase in government expenditure. These two are positive signs for GDP, but corporate sector or private investment is not satisfactory. And third one is capital flows will dictate exchange rates. Capital flows, whether they are coming into the country, whether they are going out of the country, that decides our exchange rates. So our currency, or you can say our exchange rate, is going to be vulnerable if capital outflows are there. Then decline in remittances. This is very, very important aspect. So far, our balance of payments position is much satisfactory because of this remittances. Remittances, other name is unilateral transfers. These remittances from foreign land to our country, son sending to the father, these are remittances. We are number one in the world, around $70 billion every year, and they are reducing. That is the problem which we are going to face. When remittances are reduced, when global oil prices increase, then current account deficit will increase. Right? So these are the macro financial risks in the world and about India also, how they are going to affect India and what are our internal factors. I listed out all these things here, right? And now about scheduled commercial banks, as usual, the story is as usual not satisfactory. Gross NPAs increased from 7.8% to 9.1%. This is 1.3% increase in the gross non-performing assets and overall stressed assets. Stressed assets means gross non-performing assets plus restructured loans. Restructured loans, there is every possibility that they may also fail in future. That's why stressed assets is very, very important. So, the important factors are deterioration in quality of assets, low profitability and liquidity, profit after tax is reduced, right. So, these are with regard to scheduled commercial banks, and another important aspect is public sector banks may continue to record highest gross non-performing assets ratio and lowest capital to risk weighted assets ratio. This is reverse. Normally, for the healthy banking system, capital adequacy ratio should be more, non-performing assets must be less. But in public sector banks, quite the reverse is happening. This gross non-performing assets ratio is more and capital adequacy ratio is less. So, this is the biggest problem in the public sector banks which we are going to face. And if you look further, there is money flow towards mutual funds, insurance firms, and this money is being transferred to commercial banks and NBFCs. What I mean to convey is mutual funds as well as insurance firms are in good shape, and there is a flow of funds from these two institutions to commercial banks as well as non-banking financial companies. You may have a doubt, mutual funds, these are examples of mutual funds. So, please go through this slide. And life insurance firms as well as non-life insurance firms, these two comes under IRDAI, and at the same time these are commercial banks, all of you are familiar with, and at the same time these are examples of non-banking financial companies. Some of you may not have clear distinction between banks as well as NBFCs. Please look into this, it will be clear to you. And now financial sector as a whole, and financial sector means basically the financial sector in the country is regulated by 4 regulators, don't forget. Banking sector regulator is RBI, then SEBI is the regulator for capital market, IRDA for insurance sector, pension sector, PFRDA. So, these 4 put together is the financial sector. If you analyze the report, financial sector reforms, or you can say financial sector as a whole is performing well, probably except public sector banks. And here SEBI was praised for insider trading norms and procedures adopted by credit rating agencies, right. And remaining things I have given here, you can go through it. And here I would like to tell you one more point. There is a difference between credit information companies and credit rating agencies. Credit information companies, all of you are familiar with this organization, Credit Information Bureau India Limited. It gives credit history of persons or firms. So, this is CIBIL, that is Credit Information Bureau India Limited. Remaining 3 are also credit information companies, and here these are credit rating agencies, and CRISIL is the biggest credit rating agency in our country if you look at domestically established credit rating agencies. Right friends, so with this let us conclude the 3rd capsule from this week. In addition to newspaper editorials discussion, you will have 3 capsules as well as why and how, as well as the next one is that is facts and figures. So, 5 capsules every weekend you will have. I think these are more than sufficient, and please do join for newspaper editorials discussion, and at the same time please do join for English comprehension discussion, because understanding English language is very much essential. Right friends, with this let us conclude 3rd capsule. Have a nice day. Thank you.